our open meeting for Thursday, August 28th, 2025. I will now ask the Commission Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Wednesday, August 13, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 21, or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 22, fully funding the request of Renew Wisconsin for intervenor compensation in the amount of $8,000 for its participation in docket 5050 TE 105.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 6.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 7 through 21.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. In docket 1IC 573, I move we fully fund the applicant's intervenor compensation request in the amount of $8,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So that brings us to our first discussion item of the day, which is docket 6680 TE 113, the application of Wisconsin Power and Light, or WPL, for approval of its request to expand its community solar tariff program. So first, I just want to start by saying that I really appreciate staff's work on this docket and also extend a big thank you to Alliant for developing a revised community solar program that is substantive and responsive to the Commission's directive in their previous rate case, and for their helpful comments to the Commission memo signaling consideration and support of several elements discussed in the memo regarding minor changes to the program. So I will give a little bit of background on the existing program to help provide context for the decision before us today. Initially approved in 2019, WPL's community solar program allows retail customers to make an upfront investment in solar energy and in return receive credits on their bills in proportion to the subscribed solar facility's production. On a first-come, first-served basis, WPL retail customers may subscribe to blocks of capacity associated with WPL's community solar facilities, with subscriptions limited to 100% of a customer's annual usage. As part of WPL's last rate case, which was docket 6680 UR 124, the Commission approved increasing the incremental size of single solar additions from 1 megawatt to 5 megawatts and increasing the program cap of the community solar tariff from 6 megawatts to 10 megawatts. In that same rate case, an intervener noted that WPL's community solar program did not fulfill its stated goal of, quote, of making, quote, solar simple and accessible to everyone, unquote, in its current form, and proposed requiring WPL to set aside blocks for both first-time homebuyers and low to moderate income customers. The Commission agreed with the intervener and included a condition in its final order based on the proposal. Specifically, Order Condition 37 required that, quote, the applicant shall file a TE docket to modify its tariff regarding the expansion of access of low-income customers to its community solar program by no later than December 31st, 2024. Further, the final decision required the applicant to dedicate 5% of the total kilowatt capacity to support first-time homebuyers assisted through the Department of Administration's Division of Energy, Housing, and Community Resources, or DECR, and to carve out a percentage of community solar blocks equal to the total percentage of the applicant's customers with an income at or below 200% of the federal poverty line. So, just to recap, in WPL's last rate case, they were ordered to file no later than December 31st, 2024, a modification to its community solar tariff that was to include certain elements prescribed by the Commission. They did so, and so that is what is before us today. In response to the Commission's directive in the aforementioned rate case, the applicant proposes to replace the current residential reservations with reserved subscription blocks for first-time homebuyers and LMI customers. Specifically for first-time homebuyers, the proposal reserves blocks of nameplate capacity equal to greater of 5% of the available subscription blocks, or 50 kilowatts. And for LMI customers, the proposal reserves blocks of nameplate capacity equal to the greater of 25% of the available subscription blocks, or 250 kilowatts. These blocks would be reserved for eligible subscribers for 6 months following implementation of the proposed program. WPL would then release the reserve blocks after that period. In consideration of the information presented in this docket, I did find that WP&L's application is responsive to and in compliance with the Commission's directive from the UR 124 rate proceeding. Therefore, I am comfortable with WP&L's request as filed and could support it without modifications. However, it is important to note that while we could approve the request to modify the community solar program as proposed, our staff memo did include several potential changes for us to consider related to the following program elements: eligibility, deposits and fees, unsubscribed blocks, program outreach, and pilot status and duration. Regarding program eligibility, as proposed by the applicant, customers would need to receive assistance from the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Program to be eligible for the LMI customer reserve blocks. In order to avoid the limitations of singular program qualification and other further limiting effects, our memo suggests altering the eligibility criteria for LMI customer reserve blocks by expanding eligibility to include participants in not only the Wisconsin Home Energy Assistance Project, but also the Keep Wisconsin Warm and Cool Fund, Heat for Heroes, and additional programs such as Focus on Energy's income qualified rebates. Regarding deposits and fees, under this proposal, LMI customers would be expected to pay the same two fees upon enrollment that participants in the current program are required to pay: a $25 non-refundable administrative charge and 10% of the upfront subscription fee. The remainder of the upfront subscription fee is required to be paid in a lump sum or in installments over 12 months. Given the potential financial burden and barrier to access that these fees could impose upon LMI customers, the memo offered a modification requiring WP&L to offer a payment plan for the upfront subscription fee and administrative charge. Regarding unsubscribed blocks, the memo questioned whether the program's 6-month reservation period provides a reasonable timeframe for enrollment. To help evaluate the suitability of this timeframe, the memo noted that the Commission could consider requiring the applicant to report at month 3 and month 6 of the reservation period the number of enrollments for both of the reserved blocks. And regarding program outreach, the memo referenced language WP&L developed to inform customers of possible variations in solar energy production and impacts to bill savings. This language would be included in program FAQs and project-specific production dashboards. The memo suggested an order condition requiring WP&L to include this specific language in its initial outreach materials to ensure customers are properly informed from the onset of the program. Finally, the memo teed up that in reviewing these proposed program changes, we may also want to consider whether to maintain the pilot status of the program and the duration of any pilot approval. A number of options were offered on this front, including program permanence, pilot extension for a specific period, authorizing pilot extension through the next rate case and directing a request for continuation or modification then, or taking no action. As I said earlier, I am comfortable with the initial modifications WP&L proposed in its application. However, in consideration of the information and suggestions provided in the memo and comments received by WP&L and the Citizens Utility Board, I think there are a handful of additional minor changes that can be made here to help improve this even more. Therefore, I am at alternative 2, which would be to approve the proposed adjustments to the pilot community solar program to reserve blocks of nameplate capacity with conditions or modifications consistent with our discussion. Like I said, this proposal is already good, but perhaps we can make it a bit better by 1, expanding eligibility to include customers who receive benefits from the Keep Wisconsin Warm and Cool Fund, Heat for Heroes, and Focus on Energy's income qualified rebates, and 2, on the program outreach front, directing WP&L to include the solar variability language in its initial outreach materials. That leaves the issues of deposits and fees and unsubscribed blocks before we get to our pilot duration decision. On deposits and fees, in consideration of WP&L's comments about anticipated administrative challenges and potential costs to non-participating customers in implementing the memo suggestions regarding program fees and a payment plan, I would keep the fees in place and would not direct the offering of a payment plan at this time. As I will discuss shortly, I'm not in favor of removing the program's pilot status because I do want to preserve future opportunities to revisit this issue, and the Commission could use those opportunities to consider if the fees are an actual barrier to entry for LMI customers. That's just information that we don't have available to us right now. For unsubscribed blocks, while I agree with the implication that a 6-month period may not provide a reasonable timeframe for enrollment, I don't think requiring the applicant to report the number of enrollments for both reserve blocks at 3 and 6 months does much to resolve this timing issue. Therefore, I don't support the order condition suggested in the memo to require that 3 and 6 month block enrollment reporting. While I understand the reasoning for suggesting the additional reporting, staff still has the ability to issue data requests and raise potential issues or modifications for commission consideration as part of a future proceeding. However, I am supportive of CUB's suggestion to lengthen the reservation period from 6 months to 12 months. I'm paraphrasing their position here, but I agree that this extension would give customers and the applicant a more feasible amount of time to initiate outreach, educate potential participants, apply, enroll, evaluate outreach strategies, potentially adjust marketing messages, increase the frequency of targeted campaigns, and explore new outreach channels. Expanding the reservation period to 12 months allows the applicant to make the necessary changes that could achieve a higher participation level for this customer group. I believe this change is mutually beneficial and sets the modified program up for success. Finally, regarding the program's pilot status, as I said, I don't feel the need to weigh in on this in our decision today. This program has already undergone a few changes since its inception, and it's possible other future changes may be proposed. While I anticipate the program will continue to successfully operate and am excited to see how the proposed changes today could work, I don't see an issue or harm with maintaining the pilot status for the time being so that the commission can continue to learn from the program and consider potential future modifications. My decision to not weigh in on pilot status and/or duration should not be misconstrued as a desire to end the program. Quite the contrary. The intent of my position here is to preserve opportunities to consider potential improvements to what is already a successful program. WP&L can also request the removal of the pilot status at a later date if it so chooses. So to recap, I am at sub-alt D. I'm at sub-alt D for this one then. And then to recap, I'm at alternative 2. And the further changes that I would include would be eligibility, the 12-month reservation period, and requiring initial outreach language to be included at that time. And then at sub D, take no action related to pilot status or duration. Commissioner Nieto.
Thank you, Chairperson Strand. I was ultimately at Alt 2, Sub-Alt D as well, with some minor differences. I found the way you laid out this issue to be really helpful, and I think you came to a very reasonable conclusion here. Just walking through these, the suggestion to open this to participants in Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund, Heat for Heroes, et cetera. I thought it was a good suggestion, appreciated the applicant's comments about the consistency with the AMP program, and I was at adding that modification as well. And with regard to the deposits and payment plans for those, similar position, I wouldn't require a specific payment plan for deposits. And I would just make a note here. I agree with staff on its suggestion that upfront cash costs for a program like this conflicts a little bit with the idea of opening it up to LMI customers. And we know from Focus on Energy and from many other programs that upfront cash is the barrier. And so I would also note that the applicant noted it does plan to continue to partner with community organizations to expand access to community solar. And one potential suggestion that I think we've seen work in other programs is if there are organizations out there who have the ability to front the upfront deposit, whether that's through some sort of energy assistance organization, nonprofit, or charity, sometimes those partnerships can be really beneficial to helping low-income customers subscribe and have access to a program. And so that's just something I would more make as a note, in line with, I think, the applicant's notes about continuing to partner here. But I wouldn't take up the payment plan option. And then on the reporting, I was initially for the 3 and 6 month reporting, but I think in light of your comments about data requests and keeping the LMI period open for the 12 months, I'm comfortable not going down that reporting route. So I'll join you there, but I would also extend that reservation period to the 12 months, as you discussed as well. I was also good with the initial outreach materials suggestion too. And then finally, in getting to the pilot, I agree. I think To the applicant's comments, setting up a date certain is kind of indicative that the pilot might continue or end at that date, and there might be some confusion. I don't know that we need to do that. I think this can carry on as a pilot, and we can continue to look at it. I also would not make it permanent at this time, and continue to look at what we get in terms of outcomes on the program. So that said, I'll join you on the menu of items that you selected. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks. I'm in the same place. Alt 2 sub D, support the expansion of eligibility criteria. I'm good with the outreach modifications as you both just discussed. I was also supportive of the of not changing the deposit and fee requirements. And then I'll join you on the reporting. I didn't really have strong preferences there, and I thought, as you laid it out, it made sense to me. And my bigger issue was the 12-month period. I thought Cub's arguments were really strong there. So I support that. And then I did share a concern about the deadline of the pilot status kind of having something out there looming. So sub D makes the most sense to me there. So happy to join you both at 2 sub D.
Awesome. Thank you. Good discussion. Excited to see where this goes. Okay, I think we're ready for a motion on this item.
Thank you. In docket 6680 TE 113, I move we approve the proposed adjustments to the pilot community solar program consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up, item number 24, docket 9714 FG 2024, which is the Rural Energy Startup Program. Commissioner Nieto is our delegated commissioner on OEI issues and will therefore lead our discussion of this.
All right, thank you. So this is the Rural Energy Startup Program, or RESP. We're on round 2 of RESP right now. This is funded by the 2021 Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and it's a program that's administered by the Office of Energy Innovation here at the PSC. The RESP grants fund a variety of energy planning and building efficiency upgrade projects for rural communities and consortiums of communities. We initially had an amount of $2.3 million allocated to the state of Wisconsin, and we are awarding these projects in 2 rounds. Again, round 1 was already held last year. In March, we awarded 16 projects totaling over $700,000 in an initial application period. And then we held an extended application period and ultimately awarded 14 more projects for $768,000 plus. And we did that through a comparative review of all applications, which we chose to delegate to the delegated commissioner, who was me at the time. And that process was successful. It was efficient. We are working with these funds being awarded to states under an expedited timeline, and that same timeline continues today. We have until December of 2026 to complete the full program, and that includes awarding all of the projects, having the projects completed, and reimbursing the applicants for the work that they complete. And that is what will allow us not to lose out on funding for our state. So here we are at round 2, which opened at the end of May this year with an initial deadline of July 16. We again kept an open extended application window to receive a second batch of applications in case we still had funding remaining. And in round 2, we received 13 applications. We identified 3 that had errors in some of the details or eligibility concerns, and that resulted in 1 application withdrawing from consideration and 2 being cured. So staff reviewed the applications, concluded they met the eligibility requirements for the program, and recommended all of the 12 remaining applications for funding. I will say a summary of the applications is available in our commission memo and in the supporting materials provided by staff. So with regard to the 12 eligible applications suggested for funding, I was at alternative 1, awarding those in the full amount requested. Then as part of this round, we had a second question, which was how to handle, again, the extended application period, similar to what we had in round 1. So the 12 applications we have before us today would grant funds of over $980,000, and that would leave just over $52,000 of a round 2 budget left available. So that budget would be left available, plus any underspend from the first round of this grant program would also be added to that amount and be available. And again, those are the funds we'd have to complete by that 2026 date. So we're looking at what is the best process to award that small amount of remaining funds with the remaining time that we have, and do everything efficiently and properly. Ultimately, I came down to using the same process that we used last time in round 1, which would be delegating to the delegated commissioner. We did that process. I worked with the division administrator and the team, and it worked smoothly, and I would support that again. I'd also be open to delegating directly to the division administrator. There's not too much of a difference there, as we'd work closely either way. And I did come down to opting for a comparative review of the applications by the date listed in our memo, that October extended application period date. So we can look at everything that we get in under the dollars that we have, and make that decision if we do need to look at priority. I will say it was a close call for me. I'm open to a first come, first serve. Number one, because we haven't even had to use the competitive process yet to date. The priority consideration we're really looking at is the disadvantaged community consideration. And very few of the census tracts that we have applying for this program meet that priority consideration in the first place. It's just the nature of this program based on our experience to date. And we do have other programs in the agency that run on that rolling basis, and we have experience with that process, and it works well. So all of that is to say I'd be open to that, interested to hear what my colleagues think about the question of delegation and the order of operations under the delegation. With that, I'll turn it over to Chairperson Strand.
Thank you. Thank you for leading our discussion and for your presentation of the issues. I was also at alternative 1 for our first decision item to award in the full amount requested. For decision item 2, I was also in the same position in that my position was alternative 2, which would be to delegate to you as the delegated commissioner the authority to make the subsequent eligibility and award decisions. I also would be comfortable with the division administrator at 3, but since you are at 2 and I'm at 2, I think that's good to proceed with there. As it relates to the process, I was also comfortable with either first come, first serve or a comparative review, similar to what and for the reasons that you said. I don't know, but if there is a way to only do comparative review if we have to, but otherwise first come, first serve, just given timeliness and our desire to see this kind of go as quickly as possible is kind of what I would prefer, since there is no strong consensus for either. But I'm okay with just ordering the comparative review position that you're in if we feel that would be necessary based on the applications that may come in this extended period. So not as definitive, I'm sure, as you were looking for, but I'm very comfortable with the delegated commissioner and, curious to hear what Commissioner Hawkins has to say about first come, first serve versus comparative review. Thank you.
I'll try to be definitive. Yeah, so for decision 1, I was in the same place. Alt 1 awarded the full amount requested. For decision 2, I was in the same place as well. Alt 2 to the delegated commissioner to make subsequent eligibility and award decisions. And in thinking about how those decisions get made, I was at sub-alt A on a first come, first served basis. And the way I was thinking about this was that in our original scoping, we kind of outlined priorities under the assumption that there would be a need to prioritize. Since we didn't reach the full amount, that need disappears along with that. That need to prioritize is kind of gone. It's unnecessary. So I think the first come, first serve is just the most obvious way, especially given the timeline we have to get things rolling. So I know we want, I think it's like final decisions by October of this year to meet the deadline of the end of calendar year 26. So that is why I was definitively at sub-alt A for that one.
Thank you. And I, since there are no strong objections to first come, first served, I'd be comfortable with selecting that option 2, and am open to it for all of the same reasons that we've discussed. Chair Strand,
Same, I am too, thank
Same.
you.
All right, and we're ready for a motion?
Yes.
Everybody ready? In docket 9714 FG 2024, I move we award the Rural Energy Startup Program grants consistent with our discussion and delegate to the delegated commissioner authority to make subsequent eligibility and award decisions through a first-come, first-serve process.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, item 25 is our last discussion item today, which is docket 137 CE 212, the application of ATC for a CPCN to construct and operate the Mill Road Granville Transmission Line Project. Commissioner Hawkins is going to lead our discussion on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Strand. So today we will decide on the merits of the application by ATC for a CPCN to construct and operate the Mill Road to Granville transmission line. In leading the discussion today, I'll provide a brief overview of the project, and then we'll walk through the contested items in a modified order. So there are 13 issues, some with sub-issues, and 3 of the issues are uncontested, and we will not be discussing those issues here today. I'd like to take up issues 5 and 7 together. Issue 6 is uncontested, and 5 and 7 are sort of related to the routing and siting. And so I think we've done this for other transmission projects as well. It's good to talk about them sort of at the same time. And then I would like to move from discussing those two to immediately discussing the intervenor proposed modifications to the routing, and just kind of take up all of the routing conversations in one fell swoop. So if that's all right, I'll be jumping from 7 to 9F through 9H, which is the modification. So we can just kind of handle that all. And before doing that, I want to thank everyone that participated in the development of the record. We had a lot of intervenor participation and a lot of public comments. Thank you to everyone who participated. It certainly made the record better in my reading of it, and I would like to thank the staff that worked on this. Many specific data requests also helped clarify things and reveal a lot of information that was helpful for me in my decision-making. So a bit of background on the CPCN process. The size and complexity of the project determines the review process that the commission has to follow. And when reviewing a transmission project, we have to consider alternative routes as well as need, engineering, economic safety, reliability, individual hardships, and potential environmental effects. The proposed Mill Road Granville transmission line project involves a combination of constructing new, modifying existing, and new and existing transmission lines in a highly developed and constrained areas in Milwaukee and Waukesha counties. The applicant stated the needs of supporting increased generator interconnection requests, serving new large loads in southeastern Wisconsin, resolving reliability issues associated with NERC reliability standards, and updating and replacing aging infrastructure. The proposed in-service date for the project is October of 2027, with anticipated construction starting first quarter of 26. Brief description of the project: it would include 2 new 138 kV transmission lines, a rebuild of an existing double circuit 345 and 138 kV line to a double circuit 345 kV line, replacement of aging facilities, as well as substation work at 4 different locations, including a new Mill Road substation and modifications to the Granville, Butler, and Tamarack substations. It is important to note that no party in this proceeding has disputed the project's need, in addition to commission staff having confirmed the applicant's need analysis. Many of the contentious issues before us today are instead with regard to specific siting and design aspects of the project. As we will discuss in more detail as we make our way through the DM, there are 2 routes that the applicant provides for our review. The applicant reviewed these routes in a multi-stage process that aimed to balance quantitative and qualitative factors while considering design, engineering, economics, and operational factors. The preferred route is estimated at $424 million, and the alternate route is estimated at $449 million. There are several interveners that participated in the docket, some of which propose their own modifications to the routes, and like I said, we'll be discussing those after our decisions on the proposed and alternate routes. All right, so just a quick summary of my position before we dive into the individual items that are before us today. Overall, I do support the approval of this application based on the demonstrated need by the applicant and the independent reviews and verifications by both staff and MISO. There were instances in the record that highlighted public comments expressing frustration with how the applicant chose to communicate or not with members of the affected communities. I can't confirm the validity of those concerns, and I saw a lot of useful outreach that was helpful, and I heard from the members of the public in providing their comments, their individual concerns with the process. I'm not able to referee how that all happened, but I thought in the public comment process, we did have a lot of really good back and forth developed, and staff certainly helped out in those instances and get more information and considering modifications. So I thought overall the process worked very well. And let's see here. With that, I'll pause and see if there's any opening comments from my colleagues before we start to dive into the individual issues that are before us. So, Chair Strand?
No opening comments, but thank you, and I will just extend everything that you said about all the good work that was done here. Thank you.
Same, I would particularly echo the thanks to staff for their work on those data requests and pulling out additional information that was really helpful to me in my review. Thanks.
All right. So, issue 1 deals with the requirements of our CPCN statute and what we have to review in approving a project. So the commission can reject a project if it finds that it would do one or more of the following: substantially impair the efficiency of utility service, provide facilities unreasonably in excess of future requirements, or add to the cost without proportionally increasing the value or available quantity of service. We examine those requirements considering load growth, forecast, reliability standard that the applicant has to meet, as well as the overall project costs and benefits. And to make the case for this project, the applicant cited updating aging assets, as I mentioned earlier, the need for transmission system reinforcements to comply with NERC reliability standards, as well as supporting the interconnection of new generation to serve new loads in Wisconsin. So for this specific issue, I am at alternative 1. And given the obligation to meet NERC reliability standards and the applicant's demonstration of that through power flow modeling, and that, like I said, was confirmed by both staff and MISO, I'm at alt 1 that the proposed project will satisfy the reasonable needs of the public for an adequate supply of energy and complies with the criteria of statute 196.491, 3 sub D 5.
Alt 1 for the reasons you stated. Thank you.
Same, alt 1. Thanks.
All right, moving along to issue 2. The commission must find that the proposed project is in the public interest, considering a range of factors, including alternative sources of supply, alternative locations, individual hardships, engineering, economic, safety, reliability, and environmental factors. It is the responsibility of the applicant to design a project that meets the stated needs while minimizing negative impacts to the greatest extent practicable. The applicant first analyzed alternative electric solutions to consider a range of projects that could meet the identified needs that were just discussed. The alternative pursued was significantly cheaper and included much less new right-of-way, and so from an electrical solution standpoint, the applicant has already sort of downsized the project, and then we look at different routing options within that electrical solution. So. And within that, the applicant utilized a very thorough siting methodology for reviewing the factors, and that was supplemented by the environmental assessment, and that was conducted by our DNR. So while we did receive participation by interveners that were making the case that the proposed project is not in the public interest, citing concerns related to the transmission line route and its effect on individual private properties, and those individual hardships. I want to note that these interveners raised design routing modifications that attempt to modify those. So in consideration of this issue, I am considering their input in those suggested alternatives later on down the line. So transitioning to my position here, I found the evidence of reliability and economic benefits would come from this project to be in the public interest. I was also comforted by the findings of the environmental assessment and recommendations by DNR. The fact that the design and evaluation methodology presented by the applicant demonstrated efforts to minimize impacts to individuals, communities, and the environment throughout the project design was also something that jumped out to me. And like I said, appreciate the participation of the affected residents and their arguments regarding their individual hardships. However, I do not view these individual hardships as outweighing the reliability and economic benefits of the broader public to ensure adequate and economic supply of electricity. So this puts me at Alt 1 for issue 2.
Alt 1, thank you.
Same here. I thought you covered that issue well, and I won't repeat what you said. I was at Alt 1, and I know we'll discuss some specifics in terms of conditions and routing a little bit later in the discussion, like you said as well. So thanks.
All right, moving on to issue 3. The commission has an obligation to consider the energy priorities law. And as an alternative to the proposed project, I mentioned this earlier, the applicant considered a no-build option as well as some alternative electrical options that were at much greater cost. And the rest of the EPL is not directly relevant to the transmission project, so it's kind of hard to consider those alternatives. So for me, I was at Alt 1, no higher ranked EPL alternatives exist that are cost-effective, technically feasible, or environmentally sound.
Alt 1, for the same reasons, thank you.
Alt 1, thanks.
Moving on to issue 4, this is an issue specific to the fact that the project contains 345 kV transmission lines, and that requires the commission to make sure that there's a demonstrated usage, service, and increased regional reliability benefits for the project, and that wholesale and retail customers and members of the state benefit from the high voltage transmission line, and those benefits are reasonable in relation to the cost of the high voltage transmission line. So my position on this one, looking at the analysis provided by the applicant and reviewed by staff, it clearly indicated that the proposed project provides reliability benefits and addresses reliability concerns that have existed for a number of years. The modeling demonstrated that thermal overloads on both the 138 and 345 kV systems are expected in the near term, and they're made even worse by new large loads. The project will also relieve congestion and increase transfer capability in the western Milwaukee area that has historically been limited and has been an unknown issue in the area. So this puts me at Alt 1 for issue 4.
Alt 1, for the same reasons, thank you.
Alt 1, thanks.
All right, so 5, another requirement for the issuance of a CPCN is determining that the project route would not unreasonably interfere with the orderly land use and development plans for the area involved, and which of the routes studied is most appropriate. So that's issue 7. So issue 5 first. Like I said, these are both related, and I'll note that some of the interveners and commenters make the argument that the proposed project interferes with the orderly land use and their individual development plans and suggest alternatives, and we'll take those up shortly here. But I don't see those as being the same as the land use plans for the region as a whole. So we'll take those up as individual modifications. My position here on issue 5, based on the investigations into the land use and potential future planning, I'm comfortable with the conclusions that there are not conflicts that would lead me to question compliance with the associated statute, and so I'm at Alt 1 for issue 5.
I was in the same place, and I agree. My legal analysis was that the intervener comments did not necessarily impact my decision on this one, and so I'm at Alt 1 as well. Thank you.
Alt 1 for me as well for the same reasons you both just stated. Thanks.
Great, so that leads us to issue 7, as issue 6 is uncontested, and we will skip over that. As I mentioned at the outset, the applicant is required to provide the commission with 2 routes, a proposed and an alternate. And based on the 2 routes examined in detail, I support the preferred route because it is cheaper, shorter, it minimizes environmental impacts, and has much less interference with residential structures, and particularly close proximity residential structures. So for issue 7, I am at alternative 1, which is approval of the preferred route.
I was in the same place for the same reasons. Thank you.
Alternative 1 as well.
All right, now for the modified order that I previewed earlier. So sorry for any unnecessary flipping. We're going to jump to 9F, which is related to project-specific conditions regarding route modifications to segment E and avoiding impacts to the Fleisner property. And so here we're considering a condition that was proposed by PSCW staff witness Kyle Feltis in response to a landowner public comment made by Mr. Fleisner asking that segment E of the common route be moved 50 feet north to avoid required tree clearing on the northern edge of his property. Doing so would remove most of the tree clearing required that is proposed for that portion of the project, thus resulting in less permanent impacts, as commission staff noted. The applicant notes in testimony that the adjustment would be feasible and does not object to the condition. However, they point out that doing so would impact the right-of-way on the property immediately to the north. For this issue, the record shows that this proposed change is feasible, as I mentioned, and I'm generally supportive of decreasing the amount of forested land to be impacted. There is nothing in the record rebutting this condition as it relates to the shift of the right-of-way, so I'm fine with supporting alternative 1 here, but it's been brought to my attention that the address listed in the DM is not accurate, so I would propose a slight modification to just strike that address from the proposed condition. So the modification would just end at the word Fleisner property and does not include the address. So I guess that technically puts me at Alt 2, which is supporting the condition of issue 9F as modified. So that's where I'm at for 9F.
Thank you, and thank you for your discussion of those things. As this was a staff recommended bump out, as you said, and as the impacts of this were fleshed out, I am comfortable with including this as well, and I appreciate your catch and amendment of the address. So like you said, I think that is Alt 2, and I'm okay with that minor modification. Thank you.
I'm at the same place, the alternative 2 as modified.
Great, so next up is 9G, and this issue pertains to modified routes that the interveners representing Marcy Road property and the Wymeyer property, known as MRP and WP. There are 3 modifications proposed to common segment E that are before us for discussion. 2 WP proposed routes and 1 MRP proposed route. And so in general, these 3 routes deviate from segment E by modifying the route to the south over some wetlands and attempts to minimize impacts to those individual properties. They have some similarities and differences, and we can talk about those individually if any of my colleagues would like to. I'll just note the applicant does not support the proposed modifications and stated various issues associated with access, costs, and substation design at the Tamarack substation that the proposed modifications would introduce. And Commission staff has indicated that timely permitting could still be possible given the limited size of the proposed modification. And notes that those modifications have not been fully evaluated for their environmental impacts. And so that would have to happen if we do select any of these modifications that are before us here. My position on 9G is that I appreciate the interveners in this docket raising their concerns and participating formally in our process. It did drive a lot of meaningful back and forth and consideration of these alternatives. Overall, I'm concerned that the impacts that the intervener proposed modifications will have on the cost of the project and the wetlands that would be impacted to the south of the as proposed route. So while the interveners are correct that the wetlands are impacted in other parts of the project, those occur where there's no other reasonable route to avoid them. And I agreed with the expectation that there would be additional costs and access concerns with the proposed modification. For me, the final deciding factor that leads me to not support these proposed modifications was the fact that they would all reorient how Segment E enters the Tamarack substation, and that necessitates additional substation work and modifications to the distribution facilities that are immediately to the west of the substation. As was discussed by the applicant, and you can just see from the maps, it's a very busy area of electrical infrastructure to the west of this substation. So that is why I'm not supportive of these intervener proposed modifications in 9G.
Thank you for your very well thought out and thorough discussion of that. I am in very strong agreement with you for all of the reasons that you said, and I'm not going to say them again because you said them way better than I would have been able to. Again, I do appreciate the participation here, but I think the issues that this could create outweigh any potential benefits of changing the route based on these proposals. So I'm absolutely with you. I believe that's like an alt 4 that we're not.
Yes.
None of the, okay.
I did skip that
No,
part.
it's okay.
am
I
at
just
alt
want to
4.
make sure we're good. Okay.
Bright green highlight, and yet I still can't see
I
it.
got green too. Look at that. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Alt 4 as well, I thought you said it well too, and I did appreciate the participation and the thoughtful suggestions that were offered in this record, and I'll note that. Thanks.
All right, so the next potential modification is issue 9H, and this issue presents a condition proposed by commission staff witness Kyle Feltus based on a concern raised in public comments by an affected landowner, Sandra Seymour, and her son, Jeffrey Seymour. The right-of-way, as proposed, would require that trees and other vegetation would need to be cleared from the Seymour property. Their comments cited concerns for the impact on their land and home infrastructure, including the property's septic system and well, and potential erosion they argue could result from removal of the woodlands on their property. In efforts to provide a solution, the Seymour comments highlight potential modifications in routing to the south side of Silver Spring Road, citing a vacant parking lot and existing electric infrastructure on that side of the road. To gain insight into this suggestion, commission staff submitted a data request to the applicant inquiring about the feasibility of modifying segment L as the Seymours proposed in their written comments. The applicant provided a detailed response as to the reasoning for why the route was chosen to follow the north side of Silver Spring Road in the first place. The applicant noted the desire to minimize road crossings and relocation of electrical infrastructure on the south side of the road. In addition, the alternative corridors that were analyzed sort of upstream in the process looked at alternative corridors further south of Silver Spring Road altogether, avoiding this area. Those were investigated, and those had issues with a railroad crossing further to the east. So that is why we are left in this area that segment L was proposed to be routed in. And finally, it was discovered that significant water infrastructure exists on the south side of Silver Spring Road, further complicating the suggestion by the Seymours. The applicant expressed that they do not recommend deviating from the proposed route, although they do note that the alternate route may be technically feasible. The Village of Butler also weighed in public comments in strong opposition to the proposed modification, citing concerns with infrastructure on the village's public works property, which is located directly to the south of the Seymours. And there's really not a lot of information on the feasibility in the record. We have heard responses, as I said, from the Village of Butler and the applicant, and there is no information about the cost of what this potential modification could look like. The proposed condition directs the applicant to work with the Village of Butler Department of Public Works to try to gain additional information into what the complexities of this modification might look like, and if they would have technical limitations or cost impacts. So my position on this issue. So first I want to highlight that this is a great example of how useful public comments can be, because this led to data requests and then an alternative for us to consider here at our commission meeting. And I am sensitive to the concerns raised by the Seymours in their public comments, and I have a desire for a little more evidence in the record as to why the modification might not be feasible. I am also concerned that without the detailed siting complete on the Seymour property, that there's a risk that their septic system and well might be compromised, as they raised in their letter, and that hasn't been analyzed yet by the applicant because we're just not at that stage of this project. So the proposed condition language I thought was a good start. I'm interested in a slight modification to it, and I think it takes the right approach in attempting to get additional information. We could tell right up to the very end of this proceeding that there was, good back and forth and willingness to consider a modification, and so I'm interested in what information that can bear out while still approving the proposed line and kind of leaving it there, and then opening the door to a what is the term of art that I need to have here? A minor revision. And so that's where I'm at, and I won't read out my proposed modifications to the condition if my colleagues are in a different place, because that would be a waste of time. So I'll pause there and see where my colleagues are at.
Not that I'm not interested in what you have, but I appreciate your discussion of this. I appreciate the unfortunate situation. To me, the new risks to the Village of Butler, even though they're not quite fully defined here, outweigh impacts to the Seymour property. I also, the outcome here could be just like a very strong reporting requirement, but I still don't think that that's necessary. So I am at 3 on this one. But I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Thank you.
Thanks to you both. I think this is the issue that one of the issues I had in mind at the opening of our discussion when I mentioned thanks to staff for pulling out information in the record. This was a great example of that, and it was really helpful to me in my review. I was open to exploring a condition along these lines. I think similarly, I found there to be some opportunity here to potentially avoid undue impacts. Not enough information right now to know what that opportunity might look like. And with this proposed condition, as stated, I think it gets most of the way there, but it leaves some questions about process to be answered. So I would be potentially supportive of a reporting requirement that essentially upon discovery of more information could lead to a minor routing adjustment under the MRA process, and not necessitate a reopening of an order or any more significant procedure.
Thank you both for that. And so it sounds like I might get a chance to debut my proposed modification to the condition. So I shared a lot of the same thoughts that Commissioner Nieto just explained, and I thought the proposed condition was in the right direction, but I had a couple modifications. The first being that there is another relevant landowner to the south side of Silver Spring Road that is not the Village of Butler. And so I wanted to genericize the language of who would be involved in working with the applicant to provide that information. So My first modification would be that the applicant shall work with the Village of Butler Department of Public Works and other relevant landowners, because there's two parcels there. The parcel that has all of the parking lots closer to the Menominee River, more specifically, is the one that I am thinking about when making that suggestion. And the other proposed modification I would have, let's see. So the final outcome and discussions between ATC and relevant landowners on the south side of Silver Spring Road shall be provided to the commission prior to the start of construction. If a feasible modification is identified, the applicant shall file an MRA with the commission. So just kind of putting that next step out there on if a feasible modification is identified. So those are my two tweaks, adding the potential for additional landowners, because that wasn't really clear to me if it was just the village or the village plus another entity. So those were my only two modifications to what we had in the DM.
I'm still at 3. If you guys are going to continue to go down this road, I think we need to talk, or you guys need to talk a little bit about like how this would actually work in terms of steps and sequencing, given the prior to construction language and our need to, as you've already talked about, Commissioner Hawkins, consider cost and schedule. But I'm not moving from my position on this one, so you guys can talk about it.
I am open to the modified language that you're suggesting. And I think to Chair Strand's point, the language that you suggested around shall file an MRA, would it make sense to add something to that along the lines of shall file an MRA or otherwise report on feasibility, essentially? And I think that encompasses some of whether there are concerns coming up around some of the physical infrastructure questions, around cost questions, or other questions that we have that follow-up and understanding. So either way, it's a reporting item.
That makes sense. So if a feasible modification is identified, the applicant shall report on feasibility or file an MRA, something like that.
I think regardless whether a feasible option is identified, the applicant shall report either on feasibility or file an MRA.
That makes sense. I'm good with that modification to the modification. I did not type it out, though. So if it's captured, I'm comfortable with that approach.
Legal counsel, do you have what you need on this one?
Let me run it past the commissioners. Applicant shall work with the Village of Butler Department of Public Works and other impacted landowners. Okay. I think you said relevant.
Yeah, because they're not impacted unless it actually is modified. So maybe relevant is more appropriate.
You said information shall be provided prior to commencement of construction, and if a feasible modification is identified, the applicant shall report on.
Well, actually, going back to that, so the sentence before, if a feasible modification is identified, does still require the outcome of the discussions to be reported to the commission. So Commissioner Nieto, I think your concern is addressed with the final sentence, and I'm looking at my modified version, so I don't really know if it was in there before.
It is in the original, the final outcome of the discussions.
Yeah, so I think that might get at your reporting, and then my new last sentence is if a feasible modification is identified, then the MRA. So I think either way, we get that reporting.
That makes sense to me as long as those two pathways are covered.
Okay. So then,
And
what
you prefer, so another substitution for relevant landowners is potentially impacted landowners?
that works?
Okay.
I'm still a no on this, but I want to make sure that we understand, or the division administrator understands, how they and staff are supposed to handle this, especially with a reporting requirement, but your desire to have the project continue to proceed. Again, I'm staying out of it, but I think that's something that should probably at least be considered, and maybe
Yeah.
that's something that you need to articulate to the division administrator.
I briefly discussed this with OGC earlier today, and I think the MRA process is well-defined, and there's always an option if something within that process is not fit for delegation, they can bring it to the full commission. So I feel comfortable that whatever is reported out through this condition, they have the ability to, use their own judgment as to whether or not it should come to the full commission. But I don't expect that. I just think there's a safety net sort of built in there in the existing MRA process.
Thank you, I appreciate you saying it out loud.
Okay, so,
Yeah, what you need? Okay,
all right.
thank you.
So that, I believe,
Actually, just to confirm, are you comfortable with the potentially impacted landowners language?
I'm okay with that too. Thank you.
so that leaves Commissioner Nieto and myself at alternative 2 for 9GH, sorry, and Chair Strand at alt 3. Okay. The last modification that we can discuss is issue 9J. And here we're reviewing a condition that has to do with a new issue that was brought forward by Mr. Paul Todd at the Milwaukee Lawn Sprinkler Corporation. And as described in testimony, the Todds are concerned by the construction of the new 138 kV line and its potential to interfere with future development plans to build a 2-story addition to a building on their property for their business, Milwaukee Lawn Sprinkler Corporation. Essentially, this condition aims to ensure that they would be able to construct a 2-story addition on their property. In rebuttal testimony, ATC witness Hoffman explained that ATC has met with Mr. Todd on site, and upon review of the property, ATC determined that construction of the proposed route is not likely to be an impediment to their planned expansion. He further noted that ATC is amenable to completing a detailed encroachment review to further review the expansion and whether or not it is compatible with the proposed route. While I appreciate the sentiment of the landowners here, I do not find that the condition as written to be necessary to mitigate their concerns. I would also emphasize that the proposed project is already subject to comply with applicable regulations and codes, so that language in the proposed condition was redundant in my reading of it. So because of that, I was at alternative 2 here, that this condition is not necessary. And while I don't think it's necessary, I would be supportive of some sort of modified condition related to the suggestion of completing the encroachment review that the applicant has stated they're willing to do. So I'm interested to hear if that's something that my colleagues are interested in, but I'm at alt 2 on 9J.
I think I can join you there, thank you.
I was at alt 2 on this one as well, for the same reasons you stated. So I can stay with you both here.
Okay. Well, we're good with alt 2 then, as written in the DM. So that brings us back to 8. And issue 8 presents all of the standard order conditions that,
Sorry, Commissioner Hawkins, I think that we might have skipped sub-issue 9I about the project-specific environmental resources condition
Yes,
for plant species.
we will get there.
Oh, boy.
Because it's not a routing one, so I didn't do,
Got
yeah.
it. So we're gonna go back to 9I and non-routing sub.
Right.
Got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
So now we're going back to.
8, yes. Regularly scheduled programming, as it were. So issue 8 presents all of the standard order conditions that the commission staff suggests for this project. These are recurring conditions that are expected for a project like this, and I will note that the applicant has no objection to the inclusion of any of these conditions. And my position is Alt 1. I have no concerns or issues with any of the standard proposed conditions.
I'm okay with Alt 1 and appreciate the applicant's support of this as well. Ticky-tacky, but technically Alt 3, I would be a little more consistent with some of our recent decisions to include, to the extent practical language, to Romanet X, which has to do with mitigating impacts of line-of-sight communications and landowners that can show disruption to broadcast communications post-construction. I think in general, on a lot of these recently, this commission has been amenable to adding some of that context to the extent practical or similar language to help in situations where it's not practical or feasible. And I would hope to see that type of clause become part of the future condition language, since it is something that we've repeatedly tended to add. If not, we can keep talking about it. So I'm okay with Alt 1, but I would prefer that very slight modification of Romanet 10, which would put me at Alt 3. Not the hill I'm going to die on today, though. Thank you.
Good item to raise. I can join at Alt 2, modifying that condition with the language, because I do agree that's something that should be worked in as a standard condition and standard phrasing as we go forward here.
Just to clarify, and this is not you, this is just the way it's written. 2 is that none of them are necessary, but 3 is that some as modified. So I think we're probably actually maybe at a 4, all but the slight modification to X. If you guys are okay with that, that's kind of probably the better way to say it out loud.
I think 3 allows for,
But
correct.
3 says
Yes.
some.
Yep.
So I think
Yes, thank
all,
you.
but with a slight modification to X. All right.
Yes, as modified.
Perfect.
All.
Thank you.
Adopt as the new standard.
Yes. Quote, let's adopt this as the new standard, unquote. Thank you.
Agreed, and good catch, and apologies for
No,
not
gosh, no.
running that down ahead of time, so.
You had a lot of running down that all, but
There we go.
you did a great job.
Okay, so after 8, we are moving along to 9A. And that is a condition that was proposed by Commission Staff Witness Anna Groschel. I'm sorry, I didn't practice your name ahead of time, Anna. Related to the distribution of transmission line impact fees that are associated with transmission lines that are 345 kV or larger. So the condition reads that the applicant shall provide to commission staff adequate information to determine the distribution of the one-time and annual environmental impact fees within 30 days from the date of this final decision. And I am at alternative 1. I have no concerns with this condition or modifications to it.
Alt 1, thank you.
Alt 1.
Great. 9B considers a condition that was proposed by commission staff as well, suggesting that competitive bid, like a competitive bidding reporting requirement be incorporated into the quarterly reporting condition, specifying that a summary of competitive bids received within the quarter, if any, for work to be performed and equipment to be procured as part of the project. And for this one, I am also at Alt 1 and support its inclusion.
Once again, I'm okay with 1, but to be more consistent with our recent decisions that included this language, I would be at 2 to add as applicable, which is another little caveat that we've added to these in recent past decisions. So my preference is 2 with that very slight modification. So it would read as applicable, a summary of competitive bids received. But, and also maybe, what do I have to say out loud? Going forward, this could be part of the standard order, standard language. Thank you.
And same as last time, another good flag. I agree with keeping consistent on the standard language going forward, which I believe on this one would put me at Alt 2. Thank you.
All right, I'll join you both at Alt 2, and we will move along to 9C. And this issue lists several suggested requirements provided by Wisconsin DNR witness Jerry Rademacher, which are meant to help avoid potential indirect impacts to wetlands and waterways during the post-project construction. I will not read them all out loud, and they are available in our DM and posted publicly. So I will note, though, that the applicant does not oppose any of these conditions. And I am at alternative 1 for issue 9C and support the inclusion of these additional order conditions as proposed by our DNR colleagues. And I'll turn things over to Chair Strand.
I can join you at 1. Thank you.
Alt 1?
All right. 9D is only relevant if we selected the alternative route for issue 7, which we did not do, so we do not need to take this one up, or we can, and it's alternative 3 that it's not necessary for approval of the proposed project, so I think we're good there. Good on all 3, all right. Moving right along to 9E, the issue introduces a proposed condition by DNR staff avoiding construction impacts to nesting birds and roosting bats. It states that the applicant shall implement clearing and pruning of all tree species time of year restrictions from April 1 through August 15th. This ended up being an issue that received a lot of attention and back and forth in the record, and that was due in part because the applicant pushed back on the proposed condition, and they referenced their avian protection plan in doing so as evidence for why avoiding clearing and pruning of trees during this period is unnecessary. They also claimed it was infeasible due to the project size and the timeline for construction. Upon learning about the protection plan, Commission staff requested more information about the procedure, and the applicant confidentially provided that to staff in response to a data request. There was also a lot of cross-examination related to this issue at the party hearing, and that did help fill up the record on this particular matter. The DNR and Commission staff argue that the condition restricting the time period of clearly pruning trees is necessary to mitigate the impacts on nesting birds and roosting bats, given the lack of adequate procedure to mitigate such impacts. And let's see here. The applicant suggests a modification adding to extent practicable if the Commission deems the condition necessary. So I am fine with alternative 2. I want to acknowledge the efforts of DNR and Commission staff digging deeper into this issue and getting a lot more clarity around the proposed condition, and attempting to mitigate the impacts to roosting birds and bats in the project area. And based on my review of the record, ATC has identified some segments that it would be really tricky to implement this mitigation or this restriction on the clearing requirement given the schedule. They've specifically called out certain segments that could very easily comply with the restriction, and so I believe the modification that the applicant proposes strikes the appropriate balance here, and so that puts me at 2, approving the inclusion of the condition with the addition of the phrase "to the extent practicable."
Thank you for your discussion of this one. I'm in the exact same place, and we'll just note that adding the "to the extent practical" language is also consistent with our recent decisions that included tree clearing restrictions. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm in the same place as both of you and agree about that striking the right balance, and also agree about our recent decisions, and would also recognize the DNR team and Commission staff. I think they're making those efforts in terms of some of the case-specific record information on some of these impact type conditions that we've discussed in prior cases as well, and I appreciated that in this record.
All right, that brings us to 9I, and that is where we will consider a condition proposed by a DNR witness to mitigate the impacts of construction to a rare plant species that was identified along Route Segment K. The condition directs that the applicant shall conduct presence or absence surveys for the rare plant species that may be present along Segment K, and if found, work with DNR utility liaison to determine actions to avoid and or minimize impacts to those plants. In staff's investigation, to the extent of potential impacts to this rare species, the applicant committed to further reviewing the plant's suitable habitat in the area specified and identified in the project area, and would take action to minimize the impacts to the extent practicable. I am at alternative 1. The condition in 9I is necessary for approval.
I am also at alt 1, and just will say with the caveat that my expectation is that the outcome or the actions that would be born out of this should not be overly burdensome, cost prohibitive, or negatively impact the schedule. Thank you.
And I'm at alt 1 as well. Thanks.
All right, issue 10 was uncontested, so we will move past that to issue 11, which is asking the commission to consider whether or not the commission has complied with WIPA pursuant to Wisconsin statute and administrative code rules. As is standard with a project of this nature, the environmental assessment was prepared jointly by the commission and DNR staff in accordance with WIPA. So I just want to acknowledge the efforts made by both the DNR commission staff in complying with WIPA, and I'm at alternative 1, and yes, the commission complied with WIPA.
Alt 1, and I echo your acknowledgements. Thank you.
Alt 1, thanks.
11B, in addition to complying with WIPA, issue 11B asks that we consider whether the proposed project will have undue adverse impacts on other environmental values as required by Wisconsin statute. The impacts of these other environmental values are considered in the planning and design of the project and further emphasized through the inclusion of other conditions proposed by DNR to mitigate those potential impacts. For this issue, I am at alternative 1. I believe that the impacts on other environmental values were adequately considered in this docket. The EA confirmed that the project is unlikely to have significant environmental impacts, and I am comforted by the additional conditions that we just approved, and those will help further mitigate potential impacts on the environment. So I'm at alt 1.
Alt 1, same reasons. Thank you.
Alt 1.
Issue 12 was uncontested, so we will move beyond that. Issue 13 asks, it's our last issue, should the commission approve the CPCN pursuant to Wisconsin statute for the project, given the entirety of the record and the discussion that we've had today. For this one, I am at alternative 2. Yes, the commission should grant the CPCN for the proposed project with the modifications and conditions that we have included in our discussion.
Alt 2, thank you.
Alt 2, thanks.
All right. I think we're good.
All right, in docket 137, CE 212, I move we grant a CPCN for the Mill Road to Granville Transmission Line Project consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. That was great. So before we adjourn today, we do have one more item of great importance. I'm going to ask Cindy Smith to please come up here. Come sit in your old seat one last time. So as many of you know, today is Cindy's last day at the Public Service Commission. So we do have a certificate that we want to present to her, honoring Cindy and her tenure at the PSC. The text of the commendation is a bit truncated, and as you guys have probably heard me trip over before when reading these, the repeated whereases and punctuations are really awkward. So I'm just going to read the original version that our communications director and I kind of put together, and we'll kind of go from there. So Cindy served as Chief Legal Counsel for the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin from 2010 to 2025, providing sound legal guidance and contributing greatly to the PSC's reputation as an independent, well-respected state agency. Cindy remained committed to the critical mission of the PSC to ensure the provision of safe, reliable, affordable, and environmentally responsible utility services and equitable access to telecommunications and broadband services. A selfless public servant, Cindy devoted vast amounts of time and attention to the commission, developing a deep and comprehensive understanding of utility regulation while steadily, consistently, and capably supporting her one client, the PSC. Cindy helped develop and implement significant agency improvements such as workflow and document locator to streamline PSC processes, better manage consistently high workloads, and make the commission nimbler in times of transition, disruption, and change. Throughout her tenure, Cindy provided relevant historical context, cogent legal reasoning, flexible approaches, and innovative solutions to complex regulatory issues and numerous utility filings. A revered mentor to PSC colleagues and attorneys throughout Wisconsin's energy and utilities sector, Cindy educated, trained, and guided others with patience and generous knowledge sharing. A highly esteemed colleague, Cindy is admired for her humor, integrity, brilliance, creativity, expertise, attention to detail, ability to find the right swear words. It's definitely not on here. And a standard of excellence exhibited each day. So I just want to say thank you to Cindy for her exceptional and dedicated service to our state. You will be greatly missed, but we wish you all the best in your very well-deserved retirement. I'm going to try not to cry now.
I'll try to do the same. And people know me, I normally don't have notes, but I do have a few things I'd like to say. Well, first, thank you, Chair Strand, for the kind words. And those achievements that you listed there would not have been possible without a ton of help, support, encouragement from so many people. I want to first thank former Chairperson Eric Callisto and Nate Zolak, who took a chance on someone who, in our interview, professed to certainly not being an energy lawyer, and if that's what they wanted, they should probably hire somebody else. They didn't. They hired me, and here I am 15 years later, and it's really only because of the amazing staff here at the Commission who spent countless hours with me and sharing their subject matter expertise in areas I never thought I would know anything about: accounting, engineering, economics, auditing. My greatest achievement, I think I'm an honorary auditor, and I can actually do an Excel spreadsheet now. So thank you to that team, and I guess I eventually did turn out to be an energy lawyer. I want to thank Governor Walker and Governor Evers and their appointed chairpersons, Phil Montgomery, Ellen Nowak, Lon Roberts, Becky Voss, and of course our current chair, Summer Strand, for having the confidence in me to appoint me and reappoint me as the chief legal counsel over the years. The 13 different commissioners with whom I've had the pleasure of advising over the years has shown through their public service that the provision of safe, reliable, affordable, and environmentally responsible utility service and equitable access to telecommunication and broadband is not and should not be a political issue. At every open meeting, commissioners that I've worked with, regardless, set their political affiliations aside, and they met in open session to respectfully discuss with one another the facts and applicable law. Sure, there were differences, maybe some a little more heated than others, but still always very respectful. And at the end of the day, you listened to one another, you worked together, and you arrived at decisions that were in the public interest. Ensuring the lights stay on and our homes stay warm or cool as the case may be, and that there's broadband for all, is too important to play politics with the appointments or confirmations of those who are willing to serve the public in these important roles. So let's hope that others follow your lead, and going forward, we can show each other some grace and kindness as we continue to debate these challenging issues. I want to thank my amazing team in the Office of General Counsel and the Administrative Law Judge, who I've had the pleasure of supervising. I'm so very proud of all of you. It's been the highlight. This is where it gets hard, because this is the end of my legal career. It's been my highlight to mentor all of you. And finally, I want to thank my family and friends for their support. During my tenure at the Commission, I've had a lot of personal loss. And my extended PSC family was there to support me, pick up extra work, so that I could spend time with my family. And I'm so happy that many of those extended PSC families are, in fact, my true friends. And for those friends and family, it made those losses bearable. And I want to thank my awesome sister, Carolyn, who every day inspires me with her strength and determination. So with that, thank you. I wish you all the best, and I can't thank you enough.
Thank you so much, Cindy.
Well, I could stay for the final motion?
Sure, absolutely, especially so we don't screw it up. Yeah, so that does conclude our official business for today. Our next open meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we stand adjourned until Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned, thank you. Now, we have cake, so please don't leave. Stick around. Thank you so much.